At $899, TechRadar measured the TCL QM8 at 2,859 nits of peak brightness. The Sony BRAVIA 7, which sits at eye level at Best Buy for $499, peaks at roughly 1,200 nits. The LG QNED90T at $1,599 is in the same range. You are being asked to pay $600 more for a television that the lab data says is dimmer. In the metric that most determines how a television looks in a real US living room during the day, the cheaper television wins by a margin that TechRadar, reviewing both products in the same period, could not justify a 2x price premium to overcome. That is what embarrassing means in the title. It is a measurement, not an opinion. Subscribe before we go further. Next week, I am covering the $2,000 TV combinations that retailers hope you never find. The specific split between size, model year, and technology that outperforms the default recommendation at that budget. Subscribe so you catch it. Comment question for today. Are you shopping in the $900 range or stretching to $1,500? Drop your budget and your room type below and I will tell you exactly which side the data puts you on. The belief that organizes the television floor at Best Buy goes like this. Sony, LG, and Samsung are the premium brands. TCL is the budget brand. The price gap reflects a quality gap. Walk through the store and that belief is physically embedded in the layout. Sony's BRAVIA line is at eye level. LG's QNED series sits in the premium bay. TCL occupies the lower shelf and the lower section of the floor. You register the price difference before you read a single specification. What the floor cannot show you is a measurement. And the measurements are where this belief falls apart. The TCL QM851G is TCL's 2024 flagship mini LED model. At 65 inches, it is currently selling at approximately $899 to $999 at Best Buy and Amazon, cleared from its original $499 MSRP as the 2025 QM8K arrives. The technology inside it, QD Mini LED with up to 5,000 local dimming zones, 5,000 nits peak brightness per TCL specification, 120 Hz native refresh rate with 144's VERSE support, Dolby Vision IQ, HDR10+, IMAX Enhanced certification, and an Onkyo-engineered 2.1.2 speaker system with upward firing drivers and a built-in subwoofer. Acoustics, reviewing the QM851G against the full competitive landscape, described it as delivering performance that rivals the top brands including Sony, LG, and Samsung in many areas, and specifically flagged it as a particularly strong performer in bright rooms thanks to its industry leading peak brightness. RTings scored at 8.5 for mixed usage performance. That is the same score the publication gave to sets priced $300 to $400 higher. Here is the specific comparison that earns this video's title. TechRadar tested the QM851G against the Sony BRAVIA 7 and the Samsung QNED90T simultaneously. Their measured brightness figure for the QM851G in movie mode was 2,859 nits peak. The Sony BRAVIA 7, a television Sony markets as its mini LED premium offering and prices at $1,499 to $1,599, peaks at approximately 1,200 nits in equivalent testing. TechRadar's reviewer stated directly, "I can't say that the Samsung QN90T's 2x price premium over the TCL is justified." That is not a vague preference. It is a documented reviewer conclusion from a publication that measured both products in the same testing environment. The dimming zone comparison is equally stark. The QM851G ships with up to 5,000 local dimming zones. The Sony BRAVIA 7 at $1,499 uses significantly fewer zones to manage its backlight. Fewer zones means less precise control over what areas of the frame are lit and dark, which means more visible haloing around bright objects on dark backgrounds. More zones at lower price. That is the QM851G's engineering story at this tier. There is one additional specification worth naming because it sets the QM851G apart from every competitor at this price and many above it. TCL's QM851G supports both Dolby Vision IQ and HDR10+. Sony televisions support Dolby Vision but not HDR10+. Samsung supports HDR10+, but not Dolby Vision. LG supports Dolby Vision, but not HDR10+. The QM851G supports both, meaning Apple TV Plus content streams in Dolby Vision and Amazon Prime Video content streams in HDR10+, without any format fallback. At $899, this television covers every HDR format from every major streaming service. A Sony at $1,499 does not. Before the honest limitations, and there are genuine ones, covered directly, the picture on how this price gap exists in the first place. Sony, LG, and Samsung carry brand trust built over decades of consumer electronics presence in the US market. That trust is legitimate and earned in specific categories. Sony's image processing is measurably superior to TCL's in color accuracy and upscaling. LG's WebOS software platform is more polished and stable than Google TV on most TCL implementations. And both brands offer longer track records of firmware support and customer service than TCL does at this tier. What that brand premium does not buy you at the $1,500 price point is better brightness. It does not buy you more dimming zones. It does not buy you a higher RTings mixed usage score. What the data supports is that you are paying $600 for software refinement, build quality, and brand trust. Not for the picture quality metrics that determine how the television performs on a Tuesday evening with the lights on and the game playing. For most American households, in most viewing conditions, that is the wrong $600 to spend. Now the honest limitations, because this channel does not run one-sided verdicts. Off-axis viewing angles. This is the most practically significant limitation of the QM851G for many households. When you move off-center, seated well to the side of the screen rather than directly in front of it, color saturation and contrast both degrade more noticeably than they do on an OLED or on Sony and LG sets that use IPS adjacent panel technology. Product reviews, features, and deals reviewed flag this directly in their QM851G evaluation. As you move off-center by even only a few steps, the image starts to become washed out and colors lose their vibrancy. If your household has a wide couch arrangement, a large sectional, or consistent viewers sitting at significant angles to the screen, this limitation is relevant to your purchase. The Sony BRAVIA 7's panel handles off-axis performance meaningfully better. Build quality and remote. The QM851G's physical construction is functional, but noticeably less premium than Sony or LG equivalents at comparable pricing. The remote has been described by multiple reviewers as cheap plastic compared to LG's Magic Remote. This is a tactile trade off the price gap partially explains, but it is worth knowing before you walk out of the store. Firmware stability and long-term support. TCL's firmware update history has been uneven. The QM851G shipped with performance issues that were significantly addressed in a later firmware update. The AVS forum community documented this extensively, with some users reporting that the V999 firmware fixed almost every problem with this TV. That history of requiring a post-launch patch to achieve stable performance is a real data point. Sony and LG have stronger firmware track records. If you are not the kind of buyer who monitors firmware updates and installs them proactively, the brand premium has some practical value here. HDMI 2.1 port count. The QM851G ships with 2 HDMI 2.1 ports. Sony's BRAVIA 7 and LG's QNED90T provide more at equivalent or comparable price points. For gaming households running 2 next-generation consoles and a receiver simultaneously, that limitation matters. The one scenario where the $1,500 investment is genuinely justified, dark room controlled lighting movie watching, where you can commit to a mid-range old like the LG C5 at $1,399 rather than a Sony or LG QNED. In that scenario, OLED's perfect black levels produce a picture that mini LED at any price cannot replicate. The Sony BRAVIA 7 is not that television, it is a mini LED, not an OLED, and for darkroom viewing at $1,500, the LG C5 OLED is a more logical comparison than the BRAVIA 7. That comparison belongs in a separate video. Here is the recommendation. The TCL QM851G 65-inch, model 65 QM851G at $899 is the correct purchase for viewers who watch in rooms with ambient light and prioritize HDR impact, sports performance, and raw picture brightness. It outperforms the Sony BRAVIA 7 and LG QNED90T on the measurements that determine real-world performance in lit conditions. It supports every sharp format from every major streaming service without fallback. It costs $600 less. The Sony BRAVIA 7 or LG QNED90T is defensible for households with wide seating arrangements where off-axis viewing angle performance is a daily concern. For buyers who prioritize polished software and remote design, and for buyers who want the documented firmware stability that both brands deliver more reliably than TCL has in its recent flagship history. The TCL QM851G is linked in the description as the primary affiliate recommendation. The Sony BRAVIA 7 is linked as a secondary reference for the viewers who decide the brand premium is worth their $600. Both use Amazon affiliate links, no extra cost to you, and that is how this research stays funded. Verdict in one sentence: the TCL QM851G at $899 outperforms the Sony BRAVIA 7 at $1,499 on brightness, dimming zone count, and HDR format coverage. The three metrics that determine picture quality in the viewing conditions that describe most American living rooms. And the $600 gap buys you Sony's build quality, software polish, and off-axis viewing angle performance, none of which affect what the picture looks like when you are sitting directly in front of the screen. 3 checks before you buy. First, look at where your primary seating is relative to the screen. If viewers regularly sit at significant angles to the television, the off-axis limitation is a legitimate disqualifier for the TCL, and the Sony's extra cost is justified. Second, confirm the QM851G price at Best Buy and Amazon before purchasing. The current $899 figure is a clearance sale price, not the stable shelf price, and it will not hold indefinitely as the 2025 QM8K takes its floor position. Third, if your household has a history of buying TVs and never checking for firmware updates, priced in the brand premium as warranty insurance, both Sony and LG's firmware track records are more reliable than TCL's has been at this tier. Are you shopping in the $900 range or stretching to $1,500? Drop your budget and room type in the comments and I will tell you exactly which side the data puts you on.